What if a disastrous date turned out to be the beginning of a modern-day fairy tale? Our girl went on a blind date with a single dad, all while the people who wanted to humiliate her were secretly laughing in the corner. But what they didn't know, and what she never expected, was that this man wasn't ordinary. He was hiding a secret that would astound anyone. Can love be strong enough to heal past pain and overcome all barriers of social status? Watch this surprising love story unfold. The setting sun cast a golden amber hue over the gilded rose, making it shimmer like an antique music box. But for Jessica, its opulent, majestic beauty only made her heart feel heavier. Her heart was pounding in her chest, not with anticipation, but with an indescribable sense of dread. It felt like the drum roll before a play was about to start, one she knew for certain would cast her as the main character in a drama of utter humiliation. Clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white, she read and reread Samantha's message. "Be on time, Jen. He's really excited to meet you. I'm sure you'll love him." Samantha's tone was sickeningly sweet, and Jessica knew full well there was a malicious sneer behind it. She had always been this way. Ever since Jessica refused her offer to donate her accounting figures for a shady project, Samantha had considered her a thorn in her side. A year ago, Jessica's life was completely different. She used to believe in love like a fairy tale, in promises of a bright future, with her boyfriend of 3 years. She had saved every single penny money meant to take care of her sick mother, only to discover it had all turned into a big round zero used to fund a startup project for that man and her so-called best friend. Betrayed and abandoned, Jessica had built an unbreakable wall around her heart. Love, she decided, was a luxury she couldn't afford. Now she was a different person. Quiet mornings, numbers on a spreadsheet, hurried trips to the grocery store to buy medicine for her mother, and evenings spent reading by her bedside. Her life was a closed, safe circle with no room for emotional risks. Yet today, here she was standing in front of an upscale restaurant, all because of a blind date arranged by Samantha. She had refused immediately. But Claire, her only close friend at the office, had pulled her aside, her face ashen. "Jen, they're turning it into a game," Claire had whispered. "They've already booked a table for you and him at the Gilded Rose. Samantha will be there. She wants to record this moment." Claire had tried her best to stop the prank, but Samantha had cunningly shifted the blame onto her, making Claire feel terribly guilty. In the end, a strange mix of self-respect and quiet anger made Jessica agree to go. She told herself it was better to face it, end it quickly, and walk away with her head held high. Claire had walked with her to the restaurant door, then stood in the hallway too ashamed to enter. Jessica took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of beeswax candles and roses. She walked inside, following the hostess past rows of cozy dining tables to a secluded corner. As she got closer, she saw him, the man already seated. And he was not alone. Sitting in a high chair next to him was a little girl with curly brown hair hugging a soft, worn-out stuffed bunny. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old. Jessica stopped dead in her tracks. Just then, she heard it, the muffled giggling. To her right, just 2 tables away, Samantha was sitting with 3 other colleagues, all pretending to sip their drinks while sneakily looking at their phones. One of them was even casually pointing her phone camera toward Jessica. "Oh my God!" one whispered loud enough for Jessica to hear. "He actually brought his kid! Unbelievable!" Another burst out laughing. "Who brings a child on a blind date? Cringe level maximum!" Jessica's face flushed with heat, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back to run. She couldn't endure this humiliation any longer. But just then, the little girl looked up from her bunny. She looked at Jessica, her big round eyes sparkling like two crystals, and smiled. A smile so pure, it cut straight through Jessica's emotional armor, melting the shame that was enveloping her. The man stood up when he saw her politely pulling out the chair across from him. He had kind, deep-set eyes, perhaps a little tired but very warm. He was wearing a simple shirt, his hair a little messy. Nothing like the creepy old man Samantha had painted him to be. "Hello," he said softly. "You must be Jessica." "I'm Matthew and this is Anna," he introduced. Jessica looked from him to Anna, who waved shyly, then back at Matthew. The giggling from the next table buzzed in her ears like radio static. But she did something that surprised even herself. She sat down, and immediately the laughter behind her began to subside. Jessica sat up straight, smoothing down her dress to calm her racing breath. She kept her head down but could still feel the eyes and whispers from Samantha's table. She could hear Samantha's voice. "I can't believe it," she laughed. "She's actually sitting there with that guy and his kid." Jessica squeezed her hands under the table, forcing herself to ignore it all. Across from her, Matthew was carefully adjusting Anna's little sweater as she nibbled on a piece of bread, humming a tune only she understood. He looked up, his eyes meeting Jessica's, and offered a calm, almost apologetic smile. "I am so sorry about this," he said quietly. "I know this isn't what you expected. My sitter canceled at the last minute. I almost called to cancel the date." He paused, seemingly unsure whether to continue, then added, "But I really didn't want to miss the chance to meet you." Jessica blinked, surprised. There was no arrogance in his voice, no defensiveness, just genuine sincerity. "It's okay," she replied, her voice smaller than she had intended. Initially, it wasn't. The whole spectacle was embarrassing. The whispers were uncomfortable, but there was something about Matthew's presence that calmed her. He was tall, but not intimidating. His face carried a quiet weariness, fine lines at the corners of his eyes, a small scar near his temple. He wore a dark shirt and jeans, nothing flashy. Everything about him was simple and approachable. Then, Anna reached into her tiny backpack and pulled out a stack of papers and a purple crayon. She looked up at Jessica, then started drawing with intense concentration. Matthew leaned forward slightly. "She loves to draw," he said. "Mostly princesses and dinosaurs. Sometimes both." Jessica smiled, unbidden. "That's a unique combination." "Anna has a wide creative range," Matthew said with a small chuckle. A few moments passed in comfortable silence. Jessica began to relax, her shoulders dropping bit by bit. The soft light of the restaurant cast a warm glow on their table. The quiet clinking of silverware and hushed conversations filled the space around them. But Jessica found herself focusing more on the way Matthew would occasionally glance at Anna, always attentive and present. Finally, Anna held up her drawing and beamed. "Look," she said, waving the picture toward Jessica. Jessica took the drawing in both hands. It was a crayon sketch of a blonde girl in a long purple dress covered in glittery sparkles and wearing a golden crown. "Is this me?" she asked, surprised. "Yes." Anna nodded. "You look like a princess." Jessica's throat tightened unexpectedly. "She doesn't say that often," Matthew added, looking at his daughter with obvious affection. "Usually her favorite character is a triceratops named Rosie." Jessica chuckled, touched. "I'm very honored." She was about to say more when a movement caught her eye. One of the women from Samantha's table stood up and walked toward them, pretending to stroll by. "Oh, hello there," the woman said with feigned surprise. "I didn't know you were into this sort of thing." The smile on Jessica's face faltered. The woman looked directly at Anna, then back at Jessica. "I mean, you know you're the type of girl who dates single dads, right?" It's kind of perfect. Jessica stiffened. Before she could respond, Matthew stood up slowly, still calm but firm. He gently placed a hand on Anna's shoulder, then looked the woman straight in the eyes. "I am proud to be a father," he said with finality. "And I know how to respect the woman sitting across from me better than anyone at that table." The woman's mocking smile vanished. She blinked, huffed, and walked away. Matthew sat back down looking at Jessica. "I'm sorry about that." Jessica was silent for a moment. She just looked at him, truly looked at him, and something inside her shifted. This wasn't a joke. Not for him, not for Anna, and perhaps not for her anymore either. She folded the drawing and gently put it into her purse, like a treasure. Dinner arrived soon after. The tension in Jessica's chest gradually dissipated as the voices from the next table faded. Anna now focused on arranging French fries into a crown. For a princess was a delightful distraction. Jessica couldn't help but observe Matthew. He wasn't overly charming or rehearsed. There was a stability about him, quiet, sincere. He asked thoughtful questions about her day, her interests, even whether she preferred sunrise or sunset. "It's been a long time since anyone asked me that," Jessica admitted. Matthew smiled. "Sometimes the smallest things say the most." She chose sunset. "It's like a quiet goodbye to a long day." He nodded, understanding more than she said. Then he shared a surprising detail. "My wife passed away 3 years ago," he said, cutting up food for Anna. "Ovarian cancer. It was discovered too late and it happened very quickly." Jessica's heart sank. "I'm so sorry." Matthew smiled gently. "Thank you. Anna was just 1 year old. She only knows her mother through stories. I haven't dated since. To be honest, this is the first time I've tried again." His voice held no self-pity, just the quiet truth of someone who was still healing. "Then we're both new to this," Jessica said. "At least after a very long time." She didn't elaborate, but Matthew's eyes told her he sensed the pain behind her smile. After dinner, Matthew suggested dessert. "They have some great homemade ice cream," he said with a hopeful smile. Anna's eyes immediately lit up. Soon after, they were sharing 2 small bowls of ice cream. Vanilla for Jessica and Anna dark chocolate for Matthew. Anna giggled between each spoonful, declaring herself the ice cream princess whose kingdom was very sticky. Jessica joined in as the royal knight of sprinkles. Matthew, without hesitation, became Sir Napkin, the keeper of clean hands. Their laughter came naturally. Jessica couldn't remember the last time she had felt so light and free. When the waiter brought the check, Jessica instinctively reached for her wallet. She knew how this prank was set up: an expensive restaurant, a joke meant to humiliate her. And Matthew didn't seem like a wealthy man. But as she opened her wallet, Matthew gently stopped her. "Please," he said, "let me." She hesitated. "I know how expensive this place is," he added with a soft smile. "I agreed to come here because I wanted to be with you." There was no pride in his voice, just a simple sincerity. He had seen her urge to contribute not from expectation, but from genuineness. In that moment, something passed between them. A mutual respect, a silent trust. Outside, the air had grown cool. Matthew carried Anna in one arm as they walked Jessica to her building. The little girl was blinking sleepily, her French fry crown long forgotten. At the corner, Anna stirred and reached for Jessica, her tiny arms wrapping around her neck. "You made Dad laugh a lot tonight," she whispered. "He laughs more when you're here." Jessica hugged her back, her heart tightening. She looked at Matthew. His eyes were tired but warm, filled with gratitude. They said their goodbyes in quiet voices, unspoken promises hanging in the air. Jessica walked the last few blocks alone. Anna's drawing was still tucked safely in her purse, like a sacred artifact. When she got home, She leaned against the door and finally let her tears fall. Not from sadness, but from something else. Relief. Later that evening, she picked up her phone and typed two simple words. Thank you. A few minutes later, his reply appeared on the screen. Thank you for not walking away when you saw me with my daughter. And for the first time in a long while, Jessica went to sleep with a smile on her face. In the days that followed, Jessica found herself smiling at her phone more than ever before. What had started as a simple thank you message had become a steady yet unforced stream of texts, good morning wishes, interesting articles. They found funny photos of Anna in costume and quiet late-night conversations. They didn't text all the time, but whenever they did, Jessica felt something so different, so real. It was like opening a door in a room that had been sealed for too long. On a Saturday morning, Matthew invited her to a children's art exhibition at the Maplewood Community Center. Anna made something she wants you to see, he said, his voice full of hope. She'll be so sad if you don't come. Jessica smiled as she read the message. I'll be there, she replied without a moment's hesitation. The center was tucked away between a library and a community garden. From the outside, it was unassuming, but inside it was warm and welcoming. Paper butterflies hung from the ceiling. The walls were decorated with colorful handprints. A band of children played off-key tunes on plastic instruments near the entrance. Matthew greeted her with Anna on his hip, the little girl wearing a pink puffy dress and a crown, clearly taking the event very seriously. She's been talking about this all week, Matthew said as he set Anna down. Come on, let me show you. They led Jessica into the main room where dozens of children's paintings were displayed on easels. Some were stick figures, others were wild explosions of color, but each one exuded an innocent charm. Anna excitedly pulled Jessica's hand. This one is mine. The painting was simple yet deeply emotional. A little girl in a purple dress holding hands with two adults. One looked like Matthew and the other, with blonde hair and a radiant smile in a light yellow dress, was clearly Jessica. The words scrawled in red crayon were written across the top, Mommy too. Jessica's throat tightened. She knelt down to Anna's level. Is this me? Anna nodded proudly. You make Daddy laugh. Mommy used to do that. Matthew crouched down, his face unreadable for a moment, then turned away slightly, pretending to adjust Anna's shoelace. Jessica could tell he was holding something back. They spent the next hour exploring the rest of the exhibition. Jessica noticed that every teacher, every parent, every volunteer seemed to know Matthew not just as Anna's father, but as someone of importance. They shook his hand with reverence. A few even thanked him, though Jessica wasn't sure why. Later, while Anna joined the coloring group, Jessica and Matthew stood by a coffee table in the corner sipping warm tea from paper cups. This place is lovely, she said. It's Anna's second home, Matthew replied. Especially after everything. She's lucky to have you, Jessica said. He looked at her for a long time, then shrugged lightly. I just do what I can. His tone stirred a quiet curiosity in Jessica. She didn't want to pry, but there were details that didn't add up. He always paid for meals but never boasted. His apartment, which she had seen in a quick photo, was modern and minimalist. He dressed simply, but everything he wore was of good quality. His words were humble, but his calm, confident demeanor suggested he was a man accustomed to responsibility, to leadership. As they left the center, Anna was dozing in his arms. Jessica noticed Matthew's phone vibrate. He unlocked it to check a message, and for a fleeting second, Jessica's eyes caught something. An email address displayed at the top of the screen. It wasn't just any email. It had the domain of a well-known investment firm she had heard about in the news, one of the largest in the country, the kind only executives and board members used. Matthew caught her gaze. Their eyes met. She said nothing. He smiled softly. You saw, didn't you? Jessica hesitated, then nodded. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. I try to keep that part of my life private, he said calmly. People tend to treat you differently when they know you're a CEO, she said softly. Exactly, he replied. For the record, I'm the founder of the firm that funds this center among other things. Jessica looked back at the building, then at him, speechless. Matthew shifted Anna in his arms slightly, then looked back at Jessica gently, almost with gratitude. You look at me like a dad just trying to figure things out, he said. And that is the most precious thing anyone has done for me in years. Jessica sat at her kitchen table staring into her long, cold cup of tea. The only sound in the room was the low hum of the refrigerator. But inside her mind, a storm was brewing. Doubt, fear, shame. The more time she spent with Matthew and Anna, the heavier the weight in her chest became. Matthew was kind, present, and generous without ever showing off. And Anna, sweet Anna with her bright eyes, had found a way into her heart like a sunbeam through old curtains. But even as they grew closer, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. Matthew was the founder of a major investment firm, a man who quietly funded community centers and moved in circles alien to her world. She was just a lowly accountant with no savings, a sick mother, and a past filled with betrayal. He deserved a polished, successful woman, not someone who had been used, discarded, and left to pick up the pieces. And Anna, the little girl, deserved a mother who wouldn't flinch when she accidentally called her mom. So Jessica started to withdraw. She responded to Matthew's texts later each time. She made excuses to avoid dinner. She ignored Sunday plans without rescheduling. She told herself it was for the best, that she was protecting them from her inevitable flaws. And then the final blow came. Samantha, as usual, had found a way to destroy what she couldn't comprehend. Somehow, she had found out about Jessica and Matthew. Maybe through gossip or seeing them in the park. One morning, Jessica walked into the office and found eyes following her like shadows. When she checked her phone, she saw the post. A photo of her crouching down to tie Anna's shoelace. The caption, "Some women will play family with just anyone just to feel needed. It's so cringe." The comments were even worse. Laughing emojis, snide remarks, a few feigned concern. Messages from colleagues who had never said a kind word to her. That night, Jessica didn't sleep. By morning, she had written her resignation letter and submitted it without a word. She only told Claire. When Claire showed up at her apartment a few days later with takeout in hand and fire in her eyes, Jessica tried to pretend she was asleep on the sofa. Claire didn't buy it. "You quit your job," she said bluntly, putting the food on the table. "You're ghosting Matthew. Are you seriously running away from the only good thing that's happened to you in years?" Jessica sat up slowly. "You wouldn't understand." "Then explain it to me," Claire said. Jessica's voice cracked. "He's everything I'm not. Generous, powerful, stable. I'm just a charity case he feels sorry for. And Anna, if I let her love me, I'll only end up hurting her too." Claire stared at her. "He's never treated you like a charity project. He sees you. He chose you. And that little girl, she lights up when you walk into the room." Jessica turned her face away. Claire's voice softened, but her words were still sharp. "You're not afraid of failing, Jessica. You're afraid of being loved authentically, unconditionally, without strings attached. That terrifies you." Jessica said nothing. But when Claire left, she cried, for the first time in weeks. The next evening, there was a knock on the door. When Jessica opened it, Matthew was standing there. Anna was nestled on his shoulder, her pink stuffed bunny dangling in her hand. He said nothing at first. His eyes met hers, searching calm and steady. "I didn't come to argue," he said softly. "I just needed to see you. One last time. If that's all you'll allow." Jessica couldn't speak, her eyes stinging. Anna climbed down from Matthew's arms and stepped forward, holding out a folded piece of paper. "This is for you," she said, placing it in Jessica's hand. "It's our family. You're in it." With trembling fingers, Jessica unfolded the drawing. They were all there, Anna, Matthew, and her drawn-in vibrant crayon, all holding hands under a rainbow arch. The tears came sudden and uncontrollable, and for the first time she wasn't sure if she was falling apart or finally being put back together. In the days that followed that torrential night, Jessica lived in a state of limbo, suspended between pain and a new, ineffable emotion. Anna's drawing, now framed and placed on her table, was a silent reminder of something she had lost, and something she could still have. She still didn't answer Matthew's calls, not daring to. She was afraid that if she spoke to him, she would fall apart again, returning to her old ingrained fears. But Jessica's silence was broken by one person, Claire. One afternoon, the doorbell rang insistently and without compromise. Jessica knew who it was, and she didn't want to open the door. But Claire wasn't one to give up easily. After a prolonged ring, a frantic knocking began. "Jessica, I know you're in there. Open up!" Claire shouted. Her voice wasn't angry but filled with a profound and desperate worry. Jessica, with no other choice, slowly opened the door. Claire stood there, hands on her hips, her face a mix of anger and sorrow. She walked in without a word, put a bag of takeout on the table and stared at Jessica. "What have you done to yourself?" Claire asked, her voice losing its edge, replaced by the softness of a sister heartbroken for her sibling. Jessica sank onto the sofa, curled up like a wounded cat. I'm fine." Her voice was hoarse and weak. "You're fine. You quit your job, turned off your phone, and locked yourself in your house. You think that's fine?" Claire sat down across from her, looking directly into Jessica's eyes. "You're running away. You're running away from Matthew, from Anna, and most importantly, from your own happiness." Jessica didn't want to hear it. She turned her face away, trying to avoid Claire's knowing gaze. "You wouldn't understand," she repeated like a mantra she had chanted 100 times before. "Then explain it to me." Claire's voice echoed in the small room. "Matthew is an amazing man. He's not just wealthy, he's kind and sincere. He loves you, Jessica. Anna loves you. Can't you see the way that little girl looks at you? It's the look of a child who's found a family." Jessica burst into tears. "You're right. He's amazing. And that's why I have to leave. He deserves a perfect woman. Not someone like me. Someone who was used, betrayed, and has nothing to her name. I don't deserve him." Tears streamed down her cheeks, soaking her shirt. Claire moved closer, taking Jessica's hand. Her touch was warm and comforting. "Listen to me, Jessica. I've seen everything. From the moment Samantha set you up to the first time you smiled at Matthew. He has never once looked at you as a pitiful case. He sees you for who you are, Jessica. He sees a strong, resilient woman who survived all that pain. He doesn't love you for your wealth or status. He loves you for you. And so does Anna." Claire paused, taking a deep breath. "You're not afraid of failing, Jessica. You're afraid of being loved authentically, unconditionally, without strings attached. Their love is a gift, but you're scared, afraid that one day that gift will be taken away. You've become so used to living in pain and loneliness that happiness has become something foreign, something terrifying." Claire's words were like arrows piercing straight through Jessica's heart. She had nothing left to deny. Claire had voiced all the fears she had hidden for so long. She was right. She was afraid. She was afraid that this happiness was only temporary. She was afraid that one day she would be abandoned again. She would rather leave first herself than let someone else do it. After Claire left, Jessica sat alone in the dark room in the silence. She looked at Anna's drawing, the image of the three of them holding hands under the rainbow arch, the scrawled but loving words. She cried again, but this time it wasn't from fear, but from a profound sense of relief. Finally, she had acknowledged her pain. About a week later, as Jessica was reading, a knock came at the door again. She didn't answer, but the knocking persisted patiently. She thought it was Claire back to persuade her. But then she heard a small, clear voice. "Miss Jessica, are you home?" Her heart clenched. It was little Anna. Jessica slowly got up, trembling. She went to the door and opened it slightly. Matthew was standing there, with Anna nestled on his shoulder, her pink stuffed bunny dangling in his hand. His eyes were tired but steady. He said nothing, just looked at her. "I didn't come to argue," he said softly. "I just needed to see you. One last time. If that's all you'll allow." Jessica couldn't speak. She could feel the agony in his voice. Her eyes stung. Anna climbed down from Matthew's arms and stepped forward, holding out a folded piece of paper. "This is for you," she said, placing it in Jessica's hand. "This is our family. You're in it." With trembling fingers, Jessica unfolded the drawing. They were all there, Anna, Matthew, and her drawn-in, vibrant crayon, all holding hands under a rainbow arch. The scrawled but loving words, "Our family forever." The tears came sudden and uncontrollable. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was falling apart or finally being put back together. She had lived in fear for so long that happiness had become foreign, something she had to learn to accept. She looked at Matthew, his eyes still calm and warm, and she knew he was right. He wasn't a scary man. He was just a man who loved her and loved his daughter. And she was ready to believe in that. The grand ballroom of the luxurious Diamond Grand Hotel was filled with the lively chatter of hundreds of women. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, mingling with a palpable sense of excitement and anticipation. The Women Rising Conference was one of the city's most anticipated events, a place to honor stories of resilience, healing, and hope. Jessica, who had just rediscovered those very things, had no intention of attending. But Claire, her only close friend, had insisted. "You need to be reminded of who you really are," Claire had said, her voice firm as she handed Jessica the ticket. "And maybe what you truly deserve." And so Jessica came, dressed simply, sitting tucked away in the back row, clutching the program she hadn't even bothered to look at. She tried to focus on the speakers talking about overcoming addiction, loss, and failure, but her mind kept drifting. Her heart still ached from the way she had isolated herself from Matthew, from Anna, from something that had felt so achingly close to happiness. The host's voice rang out, cutting through her thoughts. "And now we are incredibly honored to introduce our final speaker of the day, a man whose quiet contributions have changed countless lives across this city, the founder of the Radiant Hope Foundation, Mr. Matthew Williams." Jessica's fingers went cold. The applause thundered around her, but she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Matthew stepped onto the stage in a navy suit, looking poised and elegant. But as his eyes swept over the crowd and found hers, he paused for just a second. Then he smiled. "Good afternoon," he began. "I'll keep this brief because this conference isn't about me. It's about you, all of you, the women who keep going even when the world tells you to stop." Jessica's heart pounded. Matthew's voice was steady, but there was a softness, a vulnerability she recognized. "I started the Radiant Hope Foundation after I lost my wife," he said. "I needed a reason to keep going, to hold myself together for my daughter and for myself. What I didn't expect was to find something that could light up inside me again." He glanced at his notes, then folded them. Sometimes life brings the most unexpected things in the most unexpected ways. And then, without another word, he stepped off the stage. The entire hall fell silent. All eyes followed him as he walked through the rows of seats heading toward the back of the room toward her. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. He stopped right in front of her and with a gentle flourish knelt down on one knee. The silence in the hall was deafening. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it not to reveal a massive diamond but a simple, elegant, and meaningful gold ring. He looked up at her, his eyes glistening. "Jessica," he said, his voice even and low. "The day they made a joke out of my daughter, you still sat down. You saw past the spectacle, past the whispers. You made a little girl feel seen, and you made me believe again." Jessica's eyes welled with tears. "You turned their cruelty into the kindest moment of my life. And since then, every moment with you has only proven what I knew that very night." He took a deep breath. "Jessica, would you be my wife, my first, since the day I lost everything?" Jessica turned away, unable to believe her ears. The entire hall remained silent, not a cough, not a whisper. Jessica brought her hand to her mouth. She stood up, her legs trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. He said nothing. She couldn't speak either, but she nodded, once, twice, and that was enough. The entire hall erupted in cheers, applause, and shouts of joy. Everyone stood clapping as Matthew rose to his feet and wrapped his arms around her. Just then, from a side aisle, a small figure ran toward them. Her pink dress fluttered. "Anna!" The little girl threw herself into Jessica's arms, burying her face in her side. "Does this mean?" Anna asked through giggles and tears. "I have a mom now." Jessica knelt down, wrapping her arms around the little girl. "Yes, my love," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You do." Matthew knelt beside them, one hand on Jessica's back, the other on little Anna's shoulder. And in the midst of the crowd, under the stage lights and applause, the three of them held each other tightly, no longer strangers bound by coincidence, but something closer, something whole, something called family. The story of Jessica, Matthew, and Anna shows us a valuable lesson. Happiness can emerge from the most unexpected places. Don't let the fears of the past stop you from stepping into your future. And sometimes the greatest thing you can do for someone is to see them for who they truly are beyond all the prejudices. If you found this story meaningful, please give us a like and share it with your loved ones. Do you believe in happy endings like this? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.